Shoptalk. I'm Lexi Schultz. The Public Relations Society of the Philippines will hold the 17th National PR Congress tomorrow and Friday at the Intercon. And one of the highly esteemed speakers who will be gracing the event is Tim Sutton. He's the chairman of Weber Shandwick Asia Pacific. Tim will talk about the role of the PR or communications manager in the new media. Hi, Tim.
Hello.
Welcome to the Philippines.
Thank you.
You just flew in, didn't you?
I did. I'm delighted to be in Manila.
Okay. Well, we're happy to have you here. 27 years in the PR industry.
Terrible, isn't it?
Well, I'm not trying to show your age, but I'm just wondering, have you seen this huge shift only in the last few years? Social media is it's now a big player.
It is interesting. I mean, clearly the whole social media scene has, in one sense, transformed the landscape for companies, for governments, for consumers, anyone and everyone that tries to communicate with each other. And we might come on to in a moment to talk about why that has changed. But one thing I wanted to make clear is that public relations is not kind of a modern invention. No. Every younger generation thinks it's the first to discover music, the first to discover sex. All the evidence suggests our parents knew all about these things, and their parents too. And actually, if you look for references, for instance, in the Bible, there's a very famous saying.
We're going back to the Bible.
I'm going back to the Bible to show you just quite how old it is, because there's a saying in the Bible that a good name is more valuable than the most precious ointment. And there are similar sayings in the Quran, in Confucius, and many wise people throughout the ages have put their finger on that there's something called goodwill. We have it as individuals. We care about our reputations. Companies have it. Even governments try to have it and keep it. And when we have it, things are good and we can get on in life. And when we lose it, we lose something quite precious. You know, people don't talk to us, they don't listen to us, they don't open the door to us, they don't think so well of us. Well, of course, that's stayed the same. That's always been the case.
That's on a very personal level, isn't it?
It's very personal level. In fact, there are very good analogies if you think about how, as I'm sure you and I try to manage our business relationships, our friendships. Sometimes we mess up because we forget someone's birthday, or we do something we shouldn't have done, and we say sorry. But basically, we try, with integrity, most people do, to manage our relationships. Well, it's the same for companies, for big organizations. They're trying constantly to manage this. Now, what has changed, you're quite right, with the growth of social media and the whole of what we call the Web 2 environment globally, is the way you do that, how you get that across is fundamentally transformed. But the objectives remain the same.
But would you say that the new media is necessarily only the social web? What exactly constitutes?
It's a very good question, and it's a very complicated one to answer. But let me try and keep it as simple as possible. I mean, when people talk about social media, quite typically they all think of Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and all the things that are out there. And of course, these are very, very important, and we know that a lot of consumers or citizens in every netizens, even better. You've got the talk. Well, a lot of the netizens around the world, in whatever country they are, and whatever the political system, by the way, of the country they're in, this is true as well. We know that they are engaging in conversations on these platforms. We also know that they are trusting information they get from their friends, their peers, perhaps rather more than they are from companies and officials who used to put information down. So all of that, of course, is part of this sphere, but it's a lot more than that. I mean, one of the things that is really important to many, many companies, it's not just about consumers and Facebook and Twitter. If I work in, say, a bank in Manila, and I'm concerned with, banking communities, which most people out there will think is pretty boring, but as a bank, of course, they matter to me a lot, and therefore there are discussion groups on banking or analysts on banking from London or New York or Singapore or Hong Kong. There are communities doing that. If I'm a beekeeper, it might seem a funny thing to do. There are a lot of beekeepers in the world. I now have a virtual community of beekeepers I can talk to, and it doesn't matter if they're on the other side of the world. I will share interests with them, I'll exchange views with them, I'll learn from them, I'll pass opinions back and forward between them. So it applies not just to netizens and Facebook and Twitter, important as they are. It really applies to a lot of businesses. Even governments are constantly watching what each other are doing through specialist websites. So it's one big community, or if you like, a whole lot of different communities in one place, be they about consumers or businesses or politics or sport or anything else you name.
It sounds overwhelming, so how do you keep track of that?
It's very difficult to keep track of it.
Isn't it? I mean, you can't keep numbers on it.
Well, there are various tools available. And again, I wouldn't want to bore your readers, your listeners, with the technicality of some of those tools. But there are ways in which one can track. Clearly, you'd go a little bit crazy if you're a large company that everyone's heard of, Coca-Cola or Microsoft or anyone else. If you tracked every single thing that was appearing on the web, or on YouTube or on Twitter or on Facebook every day. Obviously, it's a huge volume of information. So there are tools in which one can use to try and track, what is important, and that can be defined partly by what kind of stories you think might impact you as those businesses, or it might be where they appear as significant. So a lot of chatter down in one particular portal, or may not mean much, but one comment in somewhere that's very, very influential may mean an awful lot. So there are a number of tools that we all have now within the public relations industry to measure this, to monitor it quickly, to understand what's happening, and of course, where possible, to engage in the conversation, which is really what the whole Web2 environment is about. It's about engagement, and it's about conversation. It's not about information from the top down below as it used to be 10 to 15 years ago.
But let's say in a big PR company for, like, let's say a Coca-Cola or something like that, do you have to have a new team just purely for social or new media, or do you usually outsource this?
Well, Weber Shandwick, for instance, so we have offices in around 80 countries around the world, including, I should say, an excellent team here in Manila. Our philosophy is that we don't want separate people doing it. Every company has its needs, its share of geeks, and no, geeks are important, and I'm too old to be one. I'm geeky on other things, but there are people who are excellent, of course, at understanding the technical aspects of the web, understanding how to upload information, and so on. So we all need those. But our philosophy as a company is that everyone who is concerned with public relations, whether it's in an agency like mine or many of our clients, really can't divorce what is happening digitally.
So you have to learn it.
You have to learn it. And one of the reasons you have to learn it is that there isn't really a clear divide between what's called traditional media and online media. You will know that many newspapers around the world still sell a lot of copies, it's the New York Times or the Wall Street or whatever.
But they always have online.
And they all have online versions, and of course they feed each other. And the same people are both reading the hard copies or looking online, and so they're incredibly closely linked. And so if you're in public relations trying to deal with that, you can't really have one person that's over here just thinking about the online bit and another person that's looking at the hard bit. It really has to come together in an integrated manner.
This is all about the positivity, bringing out your company's best through the PR firm. But what about crisis management in terms of new media?
Well, crisis management, again, has always been a problem for companies. What's changed really is the sheer speed of what happened. I mean, one of the most famous crises in the world 20, 30 years ago were problems that Nestle had with its baby milk powder. People were saying that wasn't good for babies and so on, and put aside the rights and the wrongs of the issue. That took probably 5 or 10 years to develop as a crisis globally. It started in Latin America, it reached a few academic obscure papers, it eventually filtered to a mainstream national newspaper, and then it went global. But 5 to 10 years to kind of develop into a major controversy. Today, that story would be out in less than 24 hours, globally.
Oh, for sure.
So the one thing is the sheer speed of what happens, and the second, of course, then is how you possibly respond to all that. The good thing about the web and social media and so on is, for sure, it puts you in a lot more risk very quickly, but it also means to allow you to get your response out quickly as well. So if I put a message out, I don't have to, the old days, I put a press release out and then wait for it to stagger through the news agencies and so on. Now it can be instantly out to everyone. So it works both ways. It's good and bad.
So what message, in a nutshell, will you be giving to the people in the PR Congress?
Well, the first thing I'll do is some listening as well, because there's no monopoly of wisdom, either from me in Hong Kong or anyone in New York or London, and every market has its own insights and its own intelligence. So I'm here partly in Manila to learn and to listen what's happening here, because innovative things are being done here just as much as they are anywhere else.
Local trends, yeah.
Absolutely. But I suppose the main sort of message is that I would want to get across is social media, digital communications, of course, is very, very critical for all the reasons we now understand. That's the way the world's living. But let's not forget that it still comes back to content. In other words, if I'm a company, I really need to have something to say.
Substance.
It needs to be substantive. It needs to be worthwhile. And I've also got to ask the question, why should anyone bother to listen to me? Is it worth it? And unless I think about the content, why should I communicate? Why should people bother? Then all the digital media in the world won't help you. It's still poor communications. So that's really the message.
I'm sure that people will be listening to you in the PR Congress, the 17th PR Congress. Tim Sutton, thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy your stay.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much for watching Shop Talk. I'm Lexi Schultz. Follow ANC Shop Talk on Twitter and be a fan of ANC Shop Talk on Facebook. Join us again tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day.